You don't belong at this table." The words landed like a slap wrapped in politeness, sharp, confident, and loud enough for the nearest diners to hear. Every glass paused midair. Every whisper died. It was 12:47 p.m. inside the Veridian, one of Chicago's most exclusive fine dining restaurants, a sanctuary of marble, glass, and soft piano jazz. The afternoon light was muted, filtered through sheer curtains that made the air feel colder than it was. At the center, a table marked reserved gleamed under a single pendant lamp. That was the table in question. The hostess froze. The woman who'd spoken white, mid-50s, wearing pearls and confidence, gestured toward the man standing quietly beside the table. "He's probably waiting for takeout. We'll take this one." A ripple of awkward laughter flickered through the nearby booths. The man she dismissed, Malcolm Reed, didn't move. Tall, dark suit, no watch, no logo, just calm. "Ma'am," the hostess began softly, "this table is reserved for us," the woman interrupted, her tone cutting through the air like crystal breaking. "I booked it under my husband's name. He doesn't look like anyone on our list." The husband smirked. "You see the kind of mix-ups we get when standards slip?" Malcolm's eyes met his for just a second, quiet, steady, unreadable. The same look he'd given loan officers years ago when they told him men like you don't get approved. He'd built empires out of those moments. But today, he wasn't here to prove anything. He was here to watch. The hostess whispered, "Mr. Reed, I'm so sorry, I'll fix this." Malcolm nodded once. "Take your time." "We're paying real money to be here," the husband added, raising his voice so others could hear. "And I'm paying people to treat guests with respect," Malcolm murmured, not looking at him. "Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Malcolm. The couple sat down anyway, ordering wine as if reclaiming territory. The restaurant's hum returned, but it wasn't calm, it was tension disguised as etiquette. Malcolm stood still, one hand resting on the back of a nearby chair. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Because somewhere between the linen and the silence, power had already changed tables. The moment the couple claimed the table, something subtle shifted in the room. It wasn't noise, it was tension. The kind that doesn't shout, it hums. A low current of disbelief ran through the diners who pretended not to watch but couldn't look away. Lauren, the floor manager, appeared from the bar area, sharp suit, tight bun, voice trained to sound like control. "Is there a problem here?" The woman at the VIP table smiled thinly. "No problem at all. Just a mix-up. This gentleman was standing at our table." Lauren turned to Malcolm, measuring him in a single glance that said, "You don't fit the profile. Sir, perhaps there's been a misunderstanding. We can find you a nice table near the window." Malcolm's tone stayed calm. "I reserved this table 2 weeks ago. Name's Reed." Lauren's tablet blinked in her hand. His name was there, highlighted in gold under owner's access. But she didn't look closely enough. "I'm afraid I don't see it." A waiter nearby, Miguel, the young busser from earlier, froze with a tray of sparkling water. He'd seen that name flash on the screen, clear as day, but he said nothing yet. The husband chuckled. "Sweetheart, it happens. Sometimes people think they belong where they don't." A few diners tittered. Lauren didn't correct him. She just gave Malcolm a practiced smile that looked more like dismissal. He didn't move, didn't raise his voice, just rested one hand on the back of a chair, the other in his pocket. The marble floor caught his reflection still, centered, unshaken. "All good," Malcolm said softly. "Take your time." He looked toward the hostess, still nervous near the podium. "Would you please confirm with reservations?" Before she could answer, the woman at the table lifted her glass, letting the light catch the wine. "Don't worry, darling. He's probably trying to sneak a photo for social media." A few heads turned. The jab landed. Lauren's eyes darted to the couple, then to Malcolm. The safe choice was obvious side, with the guests who looked expensive. Malcolm's phone vibrated once in his jacket pocket. A short buzz, nothing urgent, just his assistant confirming his next meeting downtown. He didn't reach for it. Not yet. Across the room, Miguel finally stepped forward. "Miss Lauren, I saw his name on the system," he said carefully. "It says, Reed VIP priority." Lauren stiffened. "That's not your concern." But the couple's laughter stopped. Malcolm exhaled slowly, the kind of breath that carries years of restraint. He didn't look at Miguel, but the corners of his mouth softened acknowledgement, not gratitude. He reached for the chair again, slow, deliberate. "It's fine," he said. "I'll wait a few more minutes." After all, respect takes longer to serve than lunch. The line landed heavier than the crystal on the table. Lauren blinked, unsure if it was sarcasm or authority. The couple fell silent. For the first time, the hum in the Veridian turned into quiet, and under that quiet, something dangerous began to build, the kind of silence that never stays still for long. The silence didn't last. It never does. Lauren leaned in toward Malcolm, her patience thinning by the second. "Sir, please don't make this more difficult. We're trying to accommodate everyone. By giving my table away?" His tone didn't rise, but the words carried weight too calm to ignore. The husband pushed back his chair, the scrape slicing through the air. "You heard her. This section is private. Maybe next time make a real reservation." That was it, the snap in the room, the invisible line crossing from arrogance to humiliation. A wine glass tipped over, spilling across the white linen like a spreading bruise. The woman gasped, overacting the moment. "Oh no," he startled me. She dabbed at her sleeve, though not a drop had touched her. Lauren's expression hardened. "Sir, please step aside. You're upsetting my guests." Malcolm didn't move. He simply tilted his head slightly, like a man studying a painting he'd seen too many times. That's an interesting way to describe what just happened. Miguel took a step closer, voice shaking. "Miss Lauren, it's not his fault." "Miguel," she snapped, "get back to work." The young waiter froze, lips tight. Around them, the restaurant pretended to keep eating. Forks clinked. Phones hovered discreetly, a performance of normalcy. Malcolm reached into his jacket pocket. Not fast, not aggressive, just smooth. A few diners flinched anyway. But all he pulled out was his phone. He scrolled once and said quietly, "Carla, initiate Protocol 5. Dining floor observation. Veridian, main branch." Lauren frowned. "Excuse me?" He looked up. "You'll understand soon." Across the room, the hostess's tablet blinked, the reservation system suddenly refreshing, names rearranging, a gold notification appearing at the top. "Owner's visit in progress." The couple exchanged a look. The husband's confidence faltered, the kind of unease that comes when privilege meets uncertainty. "What's this? What are you pulling?" he demanded. "Nothing," Malcolm replied, "just checking on my investment." Lauren's face drained of color. "Your investment?" The sound of heels clicked rapidly across the marble, another manager from upstairs, drawn by the tension. "What's going on down here?" she asked, scanning the scene. Her eyes landed on Malcolm, then on the blinking alert on her smartwatch. Her posture changed instantly. "Mr. Reed, I didn't realize." "Few people do," he interrupted gently, "until they have to." The couple stared, mouths slightly open. The husband's laugh came late and hollow. "You're joking. You can't be the owner?" Malcolm finished for him. "I could be, or I could be the man you just tried to humiliate. Either way, you'll remember the name." He stepped closer to the table, resting a hand on its edge, steady, deliberate. "This table wasn't just reserved," he said quietly. "It was designed for people who understand what respect looks like." The wine stain between them caught the light, red against white, a quiet reminder that dignity, once spilled, doesn't fade easily. No one spoke after that. Not Lauren, not the couple, not the guests who'd been watching like it was theater. Because at the Veridian, the act was over, and the real story had just begun. Lauren's throat went dry. The upstairs manager, Dana, glanced from Malcolm to the trembling couple still seated at the stolen table. She had worked here for 6 years, but in that moment, she looked like a new hire caught between authority and shame. "Mr. Reed, I wasn't aware you were visiting today." "That's the point," he said quietly. "I don't announce inspections. I watch." He took a step back, giving everyone a chance to breathe or to panic. The husband shifted uneasily, the false confidence draining from his posture. His wife reached for her clutch, eyes darting toward the exit as if leaving might erase what they'd done. Lauren tried to recover, her voice tight and trembling. "Sir, please understand I was only following protocol." "Protocol doesn't include humiliation," Malcolm replied. "Not in my restaurants." The line hit like a verdict. A few diners at the bar turned slightly, pretending not to stare but hanging on every word. Miguel stood frozen beside the service station, torn between duty and awe. His voice cracked when he finally spoke. "Mr. Reed, should I clear the table?" Malcolm nodded once. "No, leave it. Let everyone see what disrespect looks like before we clean it up." The couple's silence screamed louder than any apology. The husband's jaw clenched. "You can't just embarrass us in public like this." Malcolm turned to him with calm precision. "I didn't embarrass you. You did that yourself when you decided appearances were proof of worth. The woman's hand trembled around her napkin. We didn't know. You weren't supposed to, he said. That's how bias works. It only needs a glance to justify itself. A faint buzzing echoed through the dining room phones, discreetly recording. Someone at the bar whispered, "That's the owner. He's the CEO." Dana straightened, realizing the room was watching history unfold in real time. Lauren whispered, "Mr. Reed, if I could just explain." "You had your chance," Malcolm said softly. "When he nodded toward Miguel, told you the truth, and you silenced him. You didn't just ignore respect, you punished it." Lauren's lips parted, but no sound came out. Her face looked like the air had been pulled from it. Malcolm's phone buzzed again. He tapped his earpiece. "Carla?" Her voice came clear and measured. "Protocol 5 is complete, sir. The floor feed is active. I have visual confirmation from all cameras." "Good," Malcolm said. "Prepare an internal report. Mark Lauren's name. I'll review it personally." The word report landed like a gavel. Lauren's hands dropped to her sides. Dana stepped closer, trying to salvage something from the wreckage. "Mr. Reed, on behalf of the Veridian staff, I sincerely apologize." "Don't apologize to me," he said. "Apologize to every guest who watched and learned that status speaks louder than service." He turned back to the couple. The man started to stand, but Malcolm raised a hand not to stop him, just to make him think. "You're free to go," he said, voice even. "But know this, the door you walk through doesn't just open anymore, it remembers." The couple left in silence. The door closed behind them with a hush that felt heavier than the sound deserved. Malcolm looked around the room, every eye lowered, every breath held. "Now," he said, adjusting his cuff calmly, "let's start fixing what's broken." And for the first time that afternoon, the Veridian was truly quiet, not from fear, but from awakening. No one moved for a full 10 seconds. The couple's exit left a hollow stillness behind, like air sucked out of a room after thunder. You could hear the faint hum of the air conditioning again, the slow clink of a spoon somewhere at the back, a sound almost afraid to exist. Lauren stood rigid near the podium, her breath shallow. Dana, the upstairs manager, stayed by Malcolm's side, watching him like someone waiting for instruction but also bracing for judgment. Then came the voice, quiet, uncertain at first. "Sir," Miguel said, his accent soft but steady. "I'm sorry I didn't speak sooner." Malcolm turned to him, and for the first time that afternoon, his expression eased. "You did," he said. "You tried, but they didn't let you." Miguel nodded, guilt flashing across his face. I've seen this before. Different people, same story." A guest at the bar, a woman in a tailored gray suit, spoke up suddenly. "He's right. I've watched that manager brush off Black and Latino guests for months." Her words cut through the tension like a blade through glass. Heads turned. Dana looked stunned. "You've seen this happen before?" "At least twice," the woman said. "But nobody said anything. You think you'll lose your job or your reservation." Lauren finally broke her silence. "That's not true," she said weakly. Malcolm glanced at her. "Then why does everyone here look like they believe it?" The room shifted, a collective realization. People weren't just watching anymore. They were participating. A young man from a corner table raised his phone. "I got the whole thing on video," he said quietly. "Not to post, but in case you needed proof." Malcolm's eyes softened again. "Keep it. Justice doesn't always need to go viral. Sometimes it just needs to be remembered." Lauren's lips quivered. "Mr. Reed, please, I've worked here for 8 years. And in that time," he said calmly, "how many people did you make feel small just to keep order?" She didn't answer. Her silence was its own confession. Carla's voice came through Malcolm's earpiece again, clear and even. "Sir, corporate is aware. Would you like me to initiate staff audit protocol?" "Yes," Malcolm said. "Start with this branch. I'll debrief from here." Dana swallowed hard. "You're bringing in corporate?" "Not to punish," he replied, "to rebuild. But first, we name what's broken." The woman at the bar crossed her arms. "It's been broken for a long time." Malcolm nodded. "Then maybe today is the day it stops pretending." He turned to Lauren one last time. "You thought power meant having the right to decide who belongs, but real power is knowing when to stop someone like you." The line echoed. Dana exhaled, as if she'd been holding her breath the entire scene. Then Malcolm looked back toward Miguel. "You spoke truth when it wasn't safe. That matters. Come see me tomorrow, Corporate HQ, 9 a.m. Miguel blinked. "For what?" "For a promotion, and a lesson we're going to teach the rest of this company." Gasps fluttered through the restaurant, soft, awed, human. Malcolm looked around one final time. If you witnessed what happened today, remember it. Because this isn't about a table, it's about the kind of world we're building on top of it. And as he walked toward the door, every reflection in the glass seemed to stand taller as if dignity itself had finally taken a seat at the Veridian. By the time Malcolm reached the entrance, half the dining room was standing. Not in protest, in respect. Phones lowered. Voices hushed. The air that once carried humiliation now carried something different. Awareness. Dana followed a few steps behind, still trying to hold on to the script that had just unraveled in her hands. Mr. Reed, I'll handle the internal review immediately, but what should I tell the staff? Malcolm paused near the revolving door, sunlight diffused on his face. Tell them this wasn't an incident, it was a mirror, and everyone saw their reflection. The words hung in the air like an aftershock. Lauren stood frozen near the podium, mascara faintly smudged, the tablet still clutched in her hand. She looked smaller now, not because of his authority, but because truth had stripped away her costume of control. Miguel watched her from across the floor, uneasy. He wasn't enjoying her downfall, he just understood its weight. Malcolm turned back to the room. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. Lunch is on the house today. Consider it an apology from leadership, not the kind that hides behind press releases, but the kind that stands in front of you. A murmur ran through the guests. Some clapped. Others nodded quietly, still processing the spectacle they'd just witnessed. Lauren took a cautious step forward. Sir, please, if I could explain. Lauren, Malcolm interrupted gently. You don't need to explain what everyone just heard. You just need to ask yourself why it felt normal to say it. Her eyes welled, but no tears fell. There was no scene left to save. Carla's voice echoed again through his earpiece. Audit team's en route. They'll arrive in 20 minutes. Good, Malcolm said. Have them meet me in the lounge. Dana blinked. You're staying? Of course, he said simply. You don't fix culture from a distance. He walked back toward the center of the restaurant, the same spot where the couple had stood, laughing less than an hour ago. His shoes whispered over the marble. Every step felt like an erasure and a rewrite at once. He turned to Miguel. Have the staff gather here. Miguel nodded and hurried off. Within minutes, a small crowd formed. Servers, hosts, bartenders, 20 people standing in a half circle, eyes lowered. The scent of truffle oil and citrus still lingered, a strange perfume for a reckoning. Malcolm's voice was calm, but it carried. Today, you all witnessed what happens when perception outruns truth. Some of you stayed quiet. One of you didn't. Remember which side of that silence you were on. He let the silence breathe for a moment. Then, I'm not firing anyone yet. Not because I'm merciful, but because I want each of you to understand something. Every table you serve is a test. Whether the guest looks rich or not, powerful or not, you never know who's sitting there. But more importantly, you never know what kind of person you're becoming in front of them. The staff nodded, some in shame, some in revelation. Malcolm finished softly. We don't just serve food here, we serve dignity, and starting today, it's back on the menu. The line settled over them like sunlight through glass, warm, blinding, impossible to ignore. The doors to the Veridian opened again at 1:46 p.m., exactly 20 minutes after Malcolm's call. 3 corporate compliance officers stepped inside, dressed in gray suits with badges clipped to their lapels. The chatter in the dining room evaporated. Even the jazz faded into silence, like the speakers understood what kind of moment this was. Dana hurried forward to greet them. Welcome, we've been expecting. We're aware, said the lead officer, a tall black woman with a calm but razor-sharp presence. Corporate sent us full footage, live feed from every camera. Mr. Reed, we'll proceed when you're ready. Malcolm nodded, standing in the same spot where it had all begun. Let's do it here. No back rooms, no whispering. People should see what accountability looks like in daylight. Lauren flinched but didn't move. The staff gathered tighter, forming a loose semicircle. Miguel stood at the far end, wringing his hands. The officer opened a sleek tablet, scrolling through a file labeled Veridian Internal Review, Immediate Action. On screen, screenshots from security footage flickered frozen moments of humiliation captured from every angle. The couple sneering, Lauren looking away, Malcolm standing silent but unyielding. This isn't just a guest relations issue, the officer said evenly. It's a pattern. Dana looked shaken. A pattern? Yes. 4 previous complaints about discriminatory behavior in this branch. 2 under your management, Miss Dana, none properly escalated. Dana's face drained of color. Malcolm didn't interrupt. He wanted them to feel the silence the way he had felt it heavy and instructive. Lauren's voice cracked. Those reports, I thought they were misunderstandings. Misunderstandings don't repeat themselves, the officer replied. Miguel glanced up, his courage rising again. I saw one of those guests walk out crying last year. I should have said something. Malcolm looked at him, steady. You're saying something now. The officer turned the tablet toward Malcolm. As majority owner, you can recommend disciplinary action. Corporate will enforce it within the hour. The staff's eyes darted nervously. Malcolm didn't rush. He looked around the room at the faces that had been proud, defensive, or indifferent an hour ago. Now they looked human again. Start with documentation, he said. No one fired yet. We're not here to make examples. We're here to rebuild trust, and that starts with transparency. Lauren blinked, stunned that mercy still existed in his tone. Mr. Reed, I don't deserve. You're right, he interrupted softly. But you can earn what comes next. If you stay, you'll help fix what you broke. If you leave, you'll explain why you ran. The officer nodded, noting his directive. Understood, sir. We'll begin recording staff statements. Malcolm turned toward the watching guests, executives, families, tourists, who'd seen the entire story unfold. What you witnessed today isn't a scandal. It's a lesson, he said. And it's on every one of us, not just the people wearing name tags. A man near the bar whispered, He's changing the place right in front of us. Malcolm glanced at Miguel. Make sure every guest gets dessert on me, he said quietly. Something sweet to go with a bitter truth. The line drew a few nervous laughs, a few tears, and one long exhale of relief. For the first time all afternoon, the Veridian didn't feel like a battlefield. It felt like what it was always meant to be, a table where everyone finally had a seat. The first dessert trays had barely left the kitchen when the tension cracked again, not from anger this time, but from truth clawing its way out. Lauren stood near the hostess stand, pale and silent. The compliance officer was still collecting staff statements when she finally spoke. Her voice trembled but carried across the quiet dining room. I need to say something. The officer turned. Go ahead. Lauren swallowed hard. It wasn't just me. It was how we were trained. Her eyes darted toward Dana. We were told to seat priority guests first to look for presentation. That's the word they used. Presentation. Dana stiffened. Lauren? No, Lauren said, louder now, shaking her head. You told us, if someone doesn't look like they belong, reroute them to the bar until verification. I've done it for years. We all have. Gasps rippled through the staff circle. Miguel's hands dropped to his sides. The woman in the gray suit at the bar muttered under her breath, Knew it. The compliance officer typed quickly, documenting everything. Dana's face flushed red. That policy was meant to ensure security, she stammered. No, Malcolm cut in, his voice calm but firm. It ensured bias. You just dressed it in customer service. Lauren's tears finally broke. I thought I was doing my job. I didn't want to lose it. But after today, I don't even know what the job means anymore. Malcolm studied her not with pity, but with precision. It means doing what's right when no one's filming, he said. That's all it ever meant. The officer looked up from her tablet. Mr. Reed, with your approval, we'll be expanding this audit company-wide. Do it, Malcolm said without hesitation. Every branch, every policy, every manager, no more invisible rules. Dana tried to step forward. Sir, I... Don't, he said. You've said enough. Now let your silence speak for you. The dining room stayed unnervingly still. Even the chandeliers seemed to dim with the weight of it. Then Miguel spoke, voice small but sure. Mr. Reed, can I say something? Of course, Malcolm replied. Miguel took a deep breath. When you walked in, I thought you were testing us. But I think maybe this whole place has been testing itself for years. The line struck deeper than he realized. Malcolm smiled faintly. You're not wrong, he said. Sometimes institutions forget who they're built to serve. Sometimes it takes a moment like this to remind them. He turned back to the staff. Every guest who walks through that door from now on, I want them to feel what this room feels right now. Accountability, not fear. Lauren wiped her face, nodding weakly. Dana lowered her eyes. The compliance officer closed her tablet with a soft click, the sound of closure, or maybe the start of something new. Malcolm exhaled slowly and adjusted his cuff. All right, he said. Let's clean up the floor. The mess isn't the wine. It's what we believed we could spill without consequence. The staff dispersed in silence. As Malcolm turned toward the windows, the city reflected back at him calm, silver, and watching. And for the first time all day, the Veridian looked like a place ready to change. The cleanup began quietly, like a ritual. Plates clinked softly, silverware gathered in slow motion. Staff whispered instructions to one another, their movements measured, almost reverent. But beneath that calm was something else, an undercurrent of fear and confession waiting to break loose. Dana stood by the bar, pretending to check the computer terminal, her hands shaking so slightly it almost looked like a tremor. The compliance officers were finishing their interviews when she finally whispered, "Mr. Reed, there's more." Malcolm turned toward her. "Say it." Dana hesitated, then spoke quickly, as if afraid the words would burn if she held them too long. "Those priority lists, it wasn't just me. Regional management sent them down last year. We were told to implement quietly. I pushed back once, but they said it came from corporate image consultants. They used phrases like guest optics and brand comfort. I knew what it meant. I just didn't have the courage to stop it." The lead officer frowned, already typing. "Do you have those communications?" Dana nodded, her eyes glistening. "Every email. I kept them. I didn't know why until now." Ugh. Malcolm's jaw tightened, but his tone stayed low. "Forward them to Carla. Every single one. You just moved from complicity to accountability." Miguel, still nearby, whispered to a coworker, "He's not just cleaning a floor, he's burning the blueprint." The guests who hadn't left sat in stunned silence. One older man, an attorney, judging by his cufflinks, spoke softly to his companion. "What you're seeing right now? This is how reform actually starts." Lauren leaned against the hostess stand, drained. "We thought we were protecting the brand," she said quietly, "but all we did was make it smaller." Malcolm looked around the room, the chandeliers, the gleaming marble, the curated perfection that had hidden so much ugliness. "A brand without conscience isn't luxury," he said, "it's theater." The compliance officer looked up from her tablet. "Corporate has joined the feed. They're watching the session live." "Good," Malcolm replied. "They should see what silence looks like before it's broken." A soft buzz vibrated in his earpiece. Carla's voice came through steady and composed. "Sir, I've reviewed Dana's files. The directives came from a consultant under the regional VP. Corporate legal is preparing action. Would you like to address the staff before we proceed?" "Yes," Malcolm said. "But this time everyone listens." He stepped forward again, voice rising, not loud, but firm enough to fill every corner. "I built this company on one belief. That hospitality isn't about serving money, it's about serving humanity. Somewhere along the line, we forgot that. But I promise you, this ends today." Lauren looked down, tears streaking through her foundation. Dana's chin trembled. Miguel straightened, shoulders squared. Malcolm's gaze swept the room one last time. "Starting now, every Veridian branch will undergo live equity audits. Every month, indefinitely. If you can't treat people with dignity, you can't work here no matter how long you've been here." No applause followed. Just silence, the kind that feels like something sacred being rebuilt from ashes. He turned toward the officers. "Carla, have legal freeze those consultant contracts, then issue a public statement. Simple, clear, and true." "Understood," her voice replied through the device. For the first time that day, Malcolm allowed himself a breath that wasn't weighed down by restraint. Justice wasn't loud, it was efficient, and in the Veridian, it had finally found its voice. The next hour unfolded like a controlled storm, measured, inevitable, cleansing. Compliance officers moved through the Veridian like surgeons, collecting statements, sealing evidence, copying digital logs. Guests lingered longer than usual, whispering in low tones, reluctant to leave the room where something bigger than fine dining had just happened. Malcolm stood near the bar now, sleeves rolled up, his composure steady. His phone lit up with messages from corporate. "Board aware. Press inquiries pending. Legal ready." He ignored them. This wasn't about headlines, it was about healing the floor beneath his feet. Dana handed him a flash drive. "All emails, all directives. Everything," she said quietly. He nodded. "Good. You've done what most don't, told the truth before it was convenient." Her eyes glistened. "I wish I'd done it sooner." "So do I," Malcolm said. "But late honesty still counts." Miguel approached from the dining area, holding 2 menus. "Sir, guests are asking if we're still serving lunch." Malcolm smiled faintly. "We are, but not just food." Miguel tilted his head. "What else?" "Perspective," Malcolm said. He turned back to the staff gathered behind the counter. "By tomorrow morning, every employee here will attend a new briefing. No scripts, no canned policies. We'll talk about what went wrong and what we'll never repeat." Lauren, still shaken but listening, whispered, "And what happens to me?" "That depends," Malcolm said gently. "Are you ready to lead by apology instead of pride?" She nodded slowly, a quiet tear slipping down her cheek. Carla's voice chimed through his earpiece again. "Sir, corporate PR is drafting your statement." Would you like me to read it back? No, he said. I'll write my own. He looked around the restaurant, once pristine, now imperfect but honest. The wine stain from earlier had been cleaned, but the memory of it remained, a faint shadow on white linen. Malcolm exhaled. Today wasn't a scandal, he said softly. It was a diagnosis. Miguel looked at him, uncertain. And the cure? Malcolm gave a small, knowing smile. Starts with us. Outside, the afternoon light finally broke through the clouds, flooding the marble floor in a quiet, forgiving glow. For the first time all day, the Veridian didn't look wounded, it looked awake. By early evening, the Veridian looked almost normal again. Tables reset, glassware polished. The low hum of conversation had returned, but the rhythm was slower, thoughtful. Every staff member carried the quiet weight of a day they'd never forget. Malcolm sat alone at the corner booth near the window, laptop open, the city lights beginning to flicker outside. He wasn't writing a press release, he was writing a reckoning. Carla was still on the line, her voice steady through his earpiece. Sir, corporate's waiting for your draft. They'll get it when it's ready, he said. This one has to sound human. His fingers moved across the keys. The words came simply, without polish. To every guest who's ever been told they didn't belong, you were wronged. And to every employee who stood silent while it happened, you were complicit. Today, we stopped pretending respect is optional. The Veridian will no longer be a place where dignity depends on appearance. We don't serve status here, we serve people. He read it once, then twice, adjusting nothing. It didn't need corporate tone. It needed truth. Miguel approached quietly, a mug of coffee in hand. You haven't eaten all day, sir. Malcolm smiled faintly. Hunger can wait, change can't. Miguel hesitated, then asked, Are you going to fire them? Malcolm looked out the window, the reflection of the city glinting in his eyes. Some, maybe, but what matters more is that they'll never work the same way again. That's real reform. Carla's voice returned, softer now. I'll send your statement to the board, they'll approve it. Oh, they don't need to, he said. They just need to believe it. He closed the laptop and rose from the booth. Around him, the restaurant glowed with an unfamiliar warmth, not from candles, but from clarity. Guests who'd witnessed the confrontation hours earlier approached quietly as he passed. One woman whispered, Thank you for not shouting. Malcolm nodded. Justice doesn't need volume. It needs direction. He reached the door, pausing for a final glance back at the Veridian, his reflection framed in glass, equal parts exhaustion and resolve. Tomorrow, the world would read his statement. But tonight, the lesson already lived here. The next morning, the Veridian opened its doors to a different kind of crowd. Not just regular patrons, but reporters, activists, and ordinary people who'd read Malcolm's statement overnight. It had spread quietly, shared not because it was sensational, but because it was sincere. No headline screamed outrage. Instead, they carried words that felt rare in a world addicted to noise: accountability, integrity, reform. Inside, the restaurant was calm. The same marble floors, the same soft lighting, but something invisible had changed. Guests greeted the staff differently. Servers stood taller. The place felt lighter, like it had finally exhaled after years of holding its breath. Lauren arrived early, dressed in plain black, her name tag gone. She approached Malcolm, who was already at the corner booth reviewing emails. Sir, I understand if you don't want me here, she said quietly. He looked up. You showed up. That's a start. I want to stay, she said, but I want to do it right this time. Malcolm nodded slowly. Then today, you'll start training new hires. Teach them what not to become. She blinked, tears threatening again, but this time, they weren't from guilt. Dana entered next, carrying a folder of revised policies. We've removed the old priority list, she said. It's gone from every branch. Good, Malcolm said. Replace it with something better, call it the humanity code. Every location, every employee. Miguel stepped forward from the back, his new name badge shining. Assistant floor manager. He handed Malcolm a coffee. Black, no sugar, he said, smiling. You remembered, Malcolm said. Good leadership starts with attention. Carla's voice came through his earpiece again. Corporate reports a 300% spike in reservations since last night. Guests are calling it the restaurant that stood up. Malcolm smiled faintly. We didn't stand up, he said. We stayed still long enough for the truth to catch up. He turned to face the staff, now gathered in a semicircle. What happened here won't stay here, he said, because the real change isn't a policy, it's a promise. The sun broke through the glass facade, washing the floor in gold. The air smelled like coffee, lemon, and renewal. Malcolm glanced once more at the reserved sign on the center table, the one that had started it all. "From now on," he said softly, "every table here is a VIP table." And for the first time, everyone in the Veridian believed it.